Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
That time of the week again. Go low, baby. Time to talk some golf, PGA Tour, and leading into the legendary, iconic Arnold Palmer. We'll dive into a little Arnold Palmer right off the bat. Bay Hill, obviously it was a huge tournament last year when Bryson hit it over the water, the moment where he put his hands up. He's not playing. Have a couple thoughts on that. And then since we last talked, Phil Mickelson has basically lost every endorser that he had, including KPMG and Callaway. When I think Phil Mickelson, I think accounting and I think Callaway. I mean, that was pretty wow. And Workday dropped him. He got dropped by everybody. So it's been a rough, 10-day stretch for Lefty. And of course, at GoLow Pod is the Instagram. Fire into those DMs. Get your question answered here on the show. We will also talk to Jason Sobel as we do every week. I talked to him earlier today on Tuesday. He's there. I think he lives right there. He had on the Arnold Palmer, the logo. It's hard not to smile. He has a good story about drinking Arnold Palmers with Arnie. Arnold just called it an Arnie. Give me an Arnie. I'm a little more into the John Daly's, but yeah, man, just an absolute legend. So again, you want to listen to this podcast on the 3 and Out feed. Make sure you subscribe. Obviously, if you're here, you've done it. Share it with your friends. At GoLow Pod, get your question answered here on the with the DMs, and we'll dive in. GoLow Pod. I wanted to start with Arnold Palmer because as I've aged, when I was a kid, beside like my dad, you idolize athletes. You want to be like Barry Bonds or Steve Young, and then the older you get, you realize, I can't hit home runs. I can't throw touchdowns. And you change, and your life changes, you mature, and it definitely, probably not as much into my 20s, but definitely into my 30s, I've grown to idolize businessmen and great businessmen, forward-thinking businessmen. And I don't know if Arnold Palmer, just in the universal respect, he gets it in the golf community where he's just an iconic figure. As Jack Nicklaus said, he made golf cool. And let's face it, in the 50s and the 60s, golf was not cool. Golf, really before Tiger Woods, was an elitist sport. Only rich white people played it. But Arnold Palmer, a kid from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and I got a special place in my heart having lived in Philly for a couple years for PA guys. There's a toughness to them, just resonated. And obviously he had a panache to him. But when I think of Arnold Palmer, I don't just think of the great golfer. Over COVID, I watched a documentary on him and was blown away. Obviously, the drink. When you think Arnold Palmer, people my age, under 40, you think, lemonade and iced tea. And clearly he changed the, it's just an iconic drink. But in that documentary, and I didn't know this, that when the Golf Channel when they were thinking about putting the Golf Channel together in the mid-90s, and Arnold was always a forward-thinking businessman. He was flying private in the 70s and the 60s. Before even rich people flew private. But he realized he could save so much time by getting on a private plane and getting, to his destination. And then he put the umbrella logo on it, and the rest is history. But in the mid-90s, when cable TV was really taking off, people had this idea to start the Golf Channel. And Arnold was a was worth hundreds of millions of dollars at the time. He went into this negotiation with people involved in it. And his lawyers and accountants looked at him halfway through or toward the end. Arnold, I do not recommend you do this. This is not a good idea. And he looked at them and he said, if I didn't hit a few balls over the years between some tight spots and take some risks in my golf career, because he was known as a risk taker on the golf course, none of us would be sitting here. I'm all in. And he did it, and the rest is history. And as someone who consumes more Golf Channel than any other channel on TV, honestly, for me, it's not even close. I watch a ton of Golf Channel or CNBC. Those are really the two channels that I watch. And then, obviously, if games are on, Fox, ESPN, whatever. But if a game's not on, I'm not watching those channels. I watch Coward. So I watch FS1, from my office the majority of the week. But other than that, Golf Channel's on where I come from. and it would not have been possible. And maybe it definitely eventually would have happened, but this guy was the forefather of the Golf Channel. And for everything Tiger Woods did to the game, and everyone that likes playing golf, hell, I'm talking about golf now, owes a debt of gratitude. I heard Pat Perez say this: every penny of the PIP for the next 10 years should go to Eldrick Tiger Woods. Every penny, $400 million over the next 10 years. Give it to Tiger. I don't disagree. But Arnold Palmer deserves a huge, standing ovation for what he brought to golf, what he did to golf, and making this tournament, a really big deal. And as someone that loves, again, his John Daly's with Tito's, I'm very much looking forward to this tournament. And a big reason was because I remember last year being absolutely locked in to the Bryson DeChambeau show. And I think one thing Bryson has done, and unlike Tiger and Arnie, Bryson's not that cool. Bryson's just this kind of weird scientific meathead. But when he got really big and he started hitting at 370, 360 yards, he transcended sports. People that follow baseball, people that follow basketball, people that follow football. He became easily, not unlike Tiger or Phil, one of the most famous guys playing golf. You could argue besides Spieth and Rory, Bryson, you just say Bryson DeChambeau to a casual sports fan, they know who that is. And obviously, once upon a time, I think Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux had the commercial, chicks dig the long ball. It's true. So do dudes. We are fascinated by the long ball. And no one was hitting it quite like Bryson DeChambeau. And last year, when he hit that ball over the 6th hole, the irony is Lee Westwood, they both birdied the hole. It was really cool to watch. It was a thing. It was a moment for the PGA Tour. And all the Saudi stuff, it started getting jaded. Clearly, a lot of guys on tour do not like the guy. That much is not even arguable at this point. But he has, and I said this for a while, when he ultimately pledged his allegiance, but just said, at the time being, I'm staying on the PGA Tour, that was a big deal. Golf needs Bryson DeChambeau, PGA Tour golf needs him on their tour. But they also need him healthy. And I think sometimes when you get really big out of nowhere, I was watching, maybe it was like the 2000s, the Golf Channel was replaying an old tournament, and they showed Bryson was hitting shots. It was like, God, sometimes you forget how skinny the guy was. And now he's got this wrist injury. And he couldn't play this week. And, they have that big Seminole. It's the nice private golf course in Florida, run by Jimmy Dunn. Big, mover and shaker in the golf world. Bryson was supposed to play in that. He had to back out of that, and he obviously backed out of this. And now the question is, will he be ready for the Players? I don't know. And remember last year, he was in the mix for the Players up until basically Sunday. And Augusta, who we're always fascinated to watch Bryson at Augusta, can he figure it out with some of these crazy lines? I think it's all in doubt, and that makes me sad. Because someone that wants golf to be as relevant as possible, they need this guy involved. They need this guy hitting 370-yard drives. Whether they're in the trees or down the middle, he moves the needle. And he's one of the rare guys right now in golf that truly moves the needle. You put him on TV, the casual guy will pay attention. I'm paying attention no matter what. I'm watching Pat Perez, I'm watching Sepp Straka, or I'm watching Bryson or Rory. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm not normal. I also watch Jags Texans. Most people watch Cowboys Packers, right? So you want the more casual fans you can get, the more successful your business is. And Tiger brought that in droves. The pandemic really helped out golf because of so many people started playing golf. Now you need your star players. And golf obviously is loaded with them. Rahm, Morikawa, all these guys. JT, Spieth, Koepka. They got a ton of guys. They need this guy around. And they need this guy to get healthy. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that his wrist, this isn't a season-long injury. If this was basketball or baseball, we might be talking are they putting him on injured reserve? Is he going to be out months? We don't know in an individual sport like this because ultimately Bryson controls the message. And nothing really leaks if he doesn't want it to leak, so we got no clue. Clearly, I think people think he's injured, pretty badly. And he's missed a lot of time now. And I would have said, I was kind of on the fence, is he playing this up because he's trying to avoid, the circus that is him declining Saudi and involved with Saudi. But he wouldn't have missed this tournament. Not when you're the defending champ. No way. Not this moment that really became this became his logo with those two hands pointing. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I want him back at minimum for the Masters. And then since we last talked, Phil, it's been a really, really shitty 10 days for Phil Mickelson. And I've said over and over, like, I just think that he misplayed his hand. I think sometimes you can become very negative when you're in your own little world, and it can overcloud your mind, no matter how good you have it, no matter how bad you have it. But I think sometimes, and I say this a lot about the super, super rich, they can live in a very, in this bubble mentality. And I think sometimes the super rich and the famous, they don't have many people telling them things they don't want to hear. And Phil, as someone told me through text, one thing Phil and Greg Norman share is they're big thinkers. They're very aspirational. They're just, obviously they're diehard capitalists, but they're just big thinkers, which I appreciate. I really do. Like, I like those type people. They do not think small. They're swinging for the moon. But there's a balance between doing that. Phil Mickelson is not Elon Musk. He's not able to say whatever he wants. He's not the CEO. He's just a cog in this thing. And one thing, golfers, more than other pro athletes, if I'm making $200 million playing baseball or basketball, and I say something really stupid, and my sponsors drop me, well, if I'm making $30 million a year, who cares? Phil makes the majority of money, and always has, off the course. I mean, his career earnings are $90 million. If he's worth $800 million, you do the math. He made all that money for being a marketer. And I would say that no human being, you could argue in my lifetime, the three best marketers are Michael Jordan first and foremost, Tiger Woods right behind him. Those guys push products, like it's crack in the 80s. It ain't even a fair fight. Tiger Woods changed society. Think how many people, now that you guys are going back to your office, wear the Nike Polo to work. Think how many brands. I'm wearing one right now, Puma. All these brands, Under Armour, Adidas, created this material that Nike was on the forefront of doing. Nike Polos. Polos are nice. They're comfortable. They're breathable. Obviously, Tiger's golf apparel changed the game for Nike. But Phil was very similar, but with a different crowd. Tiger transcended everyone, because anyone can buy, on a cheap rack, whatever, a $30, $40 Nike pair of pants or a Nike collared shirt. Phil played, and same with Michael. Michael, you had to have a little more money to buy shoes, but, you can find Jordan brand t-shirts or whatever for cheap. Phil played to the high-end crowd. Phil was like the Roger Federer of golf, playing to the super rich, and no one played better to the super rich than Phil. He spoke their language. He wanted to be like them. He thought like them. He loved money. He was, listen, people talk like gambling is a bad thing. Everyone I know worth their salt growing up, people that I grew up around that were successful businessmen, every one of them were risk takers. And when you're a risk taker in business, you're a gambler. You're gambling on yourself. You're gambling on your company. So I think a lot of people talk shit about Phil being a gambler. To me, that's a good quality. I've been gambling for 20 years. Most of my close friends gamble too. Like, I don't view gambling. I think it has this negative connotation, less and less, but it's different than doing $20 bets on FanDuel and like, you got the balls to make a $500,000 bet? Well, if you're worth $200 million, $500,000 is no different if I'm worth $1 million and I bet, $5,000. Money's all relative. So I think the average person always freaked out at Phil gambling. Like, I found that like it's part of his personality. It's also why he won all the majors. It's also why he lost some. He was really aggressive. Arnold Palmer, big gambler. I don't know necessarily on sports, but I just mean his mindset. He was a gambling individual, i.e. the Golf Channel. Took balls to do that. Most people don't have the stones. Most people want to stay in the slow lane. Most people won't put it all in the middle of the table. But when you believe in something, you have to take calculated risks or you don't get anywhere. Welcome to America. That's the way capitalism works. Now, sometimes it bites you in the ass because sometimes there's a balance of being really aggressive and then being greedy. And Phil kind of crossed that line. And now, like, Callaway dropped him. I can't imagine over the last 20 years or however, I think Phil got involved with them in like the early 2000s. They have had a more profitable individual be involved in their brand than Phil Mickelson. And ultimately, KPMG, like, I don't know how much business Phil was directly drawing them, but it was a big deal to have their brand on his shirt or on his hat, on that Milan hat. Like, that was a really, really big deal. Phil was a marketing cash cow for these people. They loved being associated with Phil because of the positive vibes he brought them and obviously the salesmanship that he brought them. Like, an underrated part about Tiger is, like, Tiger, I think, for even when his younger days was known as kind of this dick and kept to himself. Ask anyone that was involved in some of his corporate events. Like, Tiger could turn on the charm. Tiger knew what he was doing. Tiger knew where his bread was buttered. But no one knew where their bread was buttered quite like Phil. And I don't know. Like, listen, you never say never in America. Things change. Things turned over. We love to take a guy to the mountaintop, drag him back down, and let him climb back up. The problem is when Tiger, had the incidents with Elon, and you remember Buick and some of the people dropped him, which was stupid. This guy made you so much money and you weren't loyal to him. Well, Nike was. And think how they profited. When he won the Masters in 2019? When he's cool again? Now, the difference is that happened to Tiger I think he was 33, 34 years old. Phil Mickelson's 51. And let's face it, you become 51 years old, you're not as marketable anymore. Tiger still had many, many marketable years, right, in his 30s and his early 40s. And again, won the Masters. And hell, if Tiger comes back, can you imagine the story? And I do expect Tiger to play this year. When he comes back, that will be one of the biggest sports stories of the year. And Nike will same with Monster. They got involved in that bag immediately when Buick left. You think Buick regrets that one? I bet they do. I bet they do. But I don't know, like, how Phil's going to get these guys back. At 51 years old, like, it's kind of a problem. So it just shows you, if you're Elon Musk, you can say whatever you want. When you're Phil Mickelson and ultimately you're not the decision maker, you basically work for people, you do got to be careful what comes out of your mouth. And telling Shipnuck that a couple weeks ago had major, major consequences on the guy's bank account. Okay, back at it again. Live, it looks like, from Bay Hill. He has the Arnold Palmer hat rocking. Jason Sobel, you can hear him every day, Monday through Wednesday, 2 to 4 Eastern on the PGA Tour Sirius XM channel, channel 92, as well as Links and Locks and Links. I saw you tweeted out.
Links and Locks? Yeah,
Links and Locks.
I think that's it.
And, of course, he puts out every week on the Action Network. It's become a must-read, his betting preview. And I wanted to start there, Sobel. You have Zalatoris this week. That ROM number we've talked about, right, when he's 8-1, that it's got like a Tiger feel to it, and he just doesn't win at that rate enough. But Zalatoris, a guy that hasn't broken through yet, hit me with that one. What are your thoughts on Willie Z this week?
Okay, John. First things first. I'm wearing the Bay Hill hat here at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I get it. I don't usually do that. I mean, it's sort of like wearing the Guns N' Roses t-shirt to the Guns N' Roses concert, and you can't be that guy, but this is my hometown event. I love it here. I live 10 minutes away, and so I'm representing the tournament just a little bit.
I like
today.
it.
So in any case, let's get to the pick this week, which, yes, my favorite outright, Will Zalatoris. We've seen 4 first-time winners on the PGA Tour over the last 5 weeks. By comparison, in 2021, starting in January, it took 25 events to get 4 first-time winners. So we've seen a lot of them. I don't know that I'd call it a trend, but it's at least a nice coincidence to have in the last month or so. And I do think that can extend to a guy who we know he's a world-class ball striker. We know tee to green, he's really good. He doesn't have the greatest putting stroke in the world. We understand that too. It looks a little ugly at times coming off the putter face from Zalatoris. But that said, putting tends to be neutralized a little bit here at Bay Hill. And what I mean by that is your scoring clubs are going to be driver off the tee. It's going to be the iron. It's going to be the wedges where, look, you can hit it close and make some putts and make some birdies, but it's not a place where you're going to be rolling in 20-footers all week. In fact, went and looked at all the players in contention on the leaderboard last week. Only 2 of them had ranked inside the top 15 in strokes gained putting for the entire week. So you can have success here without putting extremely well, and that's what I'm banking on this week. A lot of the guys that I do like are guys who aren't traditionally the best putters out here.
Well, then, I know you had this guy listed in your column, Hideki, who is really the last couple years, really since that Masters victory, has been unreal. He lives around in this area. His putting has been much better as of late. I mean, just in terms of an outright in a top 5. I mean, would you be shocked if Hideki's not in the mix this week?
Look, it wouldn't shock me. He's played this event 6 times, made the cut every time, but only, I believe, one result better than top 15 and one result inside the top 15. So you look at Hideki and you say, it should fit him really well. He fits the profile of guys that play this course really well. He's a great player, tee to green. Yes, he's starting to putt a little bit better. Plays and practices right down the road, about 5-10 minutes away at the Golden Bear Club at Keens Point. And so he knows the conditions. It's one thing to know the golf course, and a lot of the guys know the golf course here, but to be playing and practicing and prepping for this one just down the road, just nearby, and you kind of know what the grass is like. You kind of know how the weather conditions are reacting, certain things like that. I do think that helps. And so the fact that he's not parachuting in this week and then getting out of town, the fact that he's been around should help him this week, and doesn't have as good a record as I would have thought that he should have at this event. But yeah, I do like him this week. Probably won't have him outright, John. The number's just a little too short for me, but other platforms, if you like him for a one and done pool, if you like him for DFS lineups, I certainly don't mind it.
I got a name for you. This guy plays well on tough golf courses. He looks like he had a good week last week, even though he 3-putted 18. What about Gary Woodland? 60-1, a little bit of a longer shot, but a guy to be in the mix, top 5, top 10. He's got some momentum now coming off last week playing in Florida. What do you think about Woodland?
Just saw Gary Woodland about 10 minutes ago on the practice screen. Did get a chance to speak with him. He was working on things, just said hi and kind of walked past. But Gary Woodland's a guy that I've been waiting for a big bounce back, a big rebound, because he is much better than the results have been showing recently. Finally played well last week, and yes, you're right, plays tough golf courses really well. I don't mind that play whatsoever. This guy where he can hit that stinger. He hits a low ball off the tee, whether it's with a driver, whether it's with a low iron, that he can keep it in the fairway, flight it down, get some roll out here. It's going to be fast and firm, and so yeah, I do think that he tends to fit that profile, and he tends to play tough golf courses really well, so I do like that play. I think that's smart.
You had this guy as a long shot, and I've bet him over the years, and I can never get him right. Keegan Bradley, sell him to me this week. I mean, for putting $20, given he's well over 100 to 1, not crazy at all in terms of a long shot. But I just, whenever I bet him, Jason, he doesn't even come close. So why is this week? Why do you like him this week?
Another guy I saw earlier today, walked down the first hole with him, and I will say he made a par there on the first hole. It was fine. Hit it in the fairway, hit it to about 15 feet, missed the putt. But again, it comes back to exactly what I was saying about Zalatoris, what I was saying about Matsuyama. I want guys who are proficient tee to green. I want guys who are really good strokes gained tee to green, guys who are ball strikers. And Keegan Bradley is not a guy who's going to lead the PGA Tour in strokes gained putting. He's not a guy who's going to go out on a given week and putt it really, really well. I just need an average putting week out of these types of players. I just need them to do your usual damage from tee to green and then putt it pretty well. He loves this golf course. 9 straight made cuts, 2 top 5 finishes. He's played well here in the past. Speaking with him, seems relaxed, seems confident, seems like he's ready to get this thing going. I really like him also, John, as a first-round leader play. Tends to get off to good, hot starts. I don't think there's much of an advantage for morning wave or late wave, so I don't think tee times are going to matter too much, but I do like Keegan for this week, not just for the first round, but for all 4 rounds.
Obviously, the biggest story out there probably this week is the defending champion who's injured. Not able to attend, and he gave that kind of video yesterday. Just the expectation, the buzz you're hearing out there. I mean, the players, is he a lock for the Masters? I mean, clearly this injury, is not nothing. If your wrist hurts, it's hard to play, especially the way Bryson plays. I mean, you educated guess, any expectation for Bryson DeChambeau next time we see him?
Yeah, it's really hard. Right now, it sort of reminds me of what we saw from Daniel Berger a few weeks ago. If you recall, Daniel Berger was the defending champion at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, had to skip it this year and had a little injury, had a back injury. Came back the next week in Phoenix, and I spoke with him for a while on Wednesday in Phoenix, and Berger told me, look, it was more precautionary than anything. If that had been a major championship last week, I would have played, but I just didn't want to go out there when I wasn't 100% and might have injured myself more. And so, same type of situation. And then, of course, we saw how well Berger played this past week until Sunday, so he wasn't that far off from playing some very good golf. Bryson DeChambeau, like Berger was at that point, is the defending champion this week, decides to take this week off, at least from the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter video that he put out. I don't know what exactly we're calling it, but he sounds like he's doing this for precautionary measures. He's not quite 100%. What does that mean moving forward? Does that mean we see him next week at the Players? I don't know. I mean, it's coming up very soon. Does that mean we don't see him until the Masters? I don't know that either. So it's just kind of a wait and see for Bryson. What I will say about him, though, John, is the fact that, and Kyle Porter from CBS Sports tweeted this out on Monday, the fact that the PGA Tour season is about 40% complete right now. Bryson has played 2 events and made the cut in just one of them. He's something like 197th on the FedEx Cup points list. It's getting late early, and I get it. We haven't played the majors yet. There's a lot of big-time events still left to play. You can still easily catch up if you're far behind. But boy, making 2 starts and only making 1 paycheck in the first 40%, first 2/5 of the season, that doesn't seem like a really good barometer for where your season's going to go from here.
One last name. I mean, are we ever going to bet Rory in any tournaments coming forward, or is he just kind of floating around? If he comes through, then we'll be shocked. But it doesn't feel like he's really on our radar right now. Is that fair to say?
No, not really. You know what? If you're going to do it this week. This is the one where I like Rory. Granted, it's a short number, but look, if you gave me Rahm, who's 7.5, 8-1 in most books, or Rory, who's 10-1, 11-1, if you said, hey, you can have either one of those guys at 10-1, which do you want this week? I still take Rory. I get it. Rahm's the favorite. Rahm's the best player in the world, but Rory has played so well on this golf course. Won it back in 18. He's got 6 finishes of 11th or better in 7 career starts here at Bay Hill, and so he loves this place. I think it's a good spot to take Rory. Now, do you want to chase a 10-1, 11-1 number? Not really, but one and done pools, DFS plays, if you want to take him just for a top 5, I do think this is a nice week for him. And speaking of barometers, I think this is a really good barometer for Rory moving forward. He's played well so far this year. Granted, limited starts, 2 on the DP World Tour, the Euro Tour overseas, and then 1 here in the States where he finished in a share of 10th place. So, look, he's been playing well. The ceiling is as high as it's always been. The floor doesn't seem as low as it's been over the last couple of years. Last couple of years, if Rory didn't have his good stuff, it could have been really bad. It was, hey, I'm slamming the trunk come Friday. It seems like that floor is higher. And what I mean by that is even his B game or his C game can still get him up there somewhere close to the leaderboard. And so I like him a lot this week. I kind of like him moving forward. So I can see betting Rory in the very near future.
Well, the Players right around the corner. The Arnold Palmer's hard to beat. This is a great week and a half stretch, is not? Doesn't get much better than this, but non-major.
No, it's really good. I like this. I know that last week a lot of people might have been turned off a little bit, saying, no top 10 players, and the Honda doesn't have the greatest field. Look, if that's why you watch golf, and I think that a lot of the people listening right now watch for reasons other than just to see the best players. If you're betting on it, you understand, hey, even an event that doesn't have great players in it, I can still bet. And in fact, I like betting those more. And so you can find some reason for personal investment in any event. But if you're more of a casual fan, you like seeing the big names, you like seeing the great tournaments, the next week and a half, like you said, John, are going to be really, really fun.
Thanks, Sobel. Enjoy the week, and you don't drink too many Arnold Palmers out there.
You kind of have to here. I once went to a luncheon when I was with Arnold Palmer, and he was speaking. There were about 40 people in the room. All 40 of them ordered an Arnold Palmer for lunch. You just can't do it. You can't do anything else when you're around him, and now that he's no longer with us, when you're here, it just feels like something you have to do.
I can't even imagine drinking an Arnold Palmer around Arnold Palmer. I mean, how does it get any better than that?
You know what he used to say? He used to say, "Can you get me an Arnie?" Wouldn't say, "Can I have a me?" Wouldn't say an Arnold Palmer. Can you get me an Arnie? I love that.
That's awesome. Have a great day, Sobel.